Another thing, change your environment, guys. And that's something I've noticed a lot in the last 2 years is like if you are one of those people that you find it hard to get in a calm, collective mindset when you're trying to fix stuff, like literally don't work in your home if it's too distracting, or if you do, go in a separate room, make it nice, make it comfortable for you, make everything about the area that you're working in be like a positive experience for you. Make it to where so this is gonna sound really cheesy, all right, guys, but like I have like these stacks of like neon like LED lights, and if I really like want to just get in a good mood and feel cool, I'll put this black curtain up all the way like it is right now. I'll put on like all these strobe lights. I'll put on some best of Bach on like a YouTube playlist, and like I got a nice standing desk that's remote and moves up and down. It's not the working station that I have, to say the least. It's not like an unpleasurable experience, right? It's way more pleasurable than back in the good old day where I used to have to go into an office and like be in a cardboard, like a cubicle, which isn't always the nicest thing to like surround yourself in, right? So that's something big too that I think is underrated, is like having a physically good environment to where like you don't want to leave. Like you love your workplace so much, it gives you fulfillment, enjoyment just to be there. So I've done everything I could to like make this little environment that I am in nice and pleasurable. That way I don't feel angry or sad or like I want to get the hell out of here when I'm working. I'm like, hey, I actually don't even want to go outside. I don't care if it's 95 and sunny and I have a topless Bronco. I want to stay here because it's that much, it's that comfortable for me, right? Gerald agreed to that mantra. Able to defeat your beast, you have to be the beast. Yeah, for real, man. I spent 6 hours last week documenting problems out and their solutions, who to contact, and how to make the ticket. Another thing, document all of these with links in a file for that year. At the end of the year, you can use this for your review. Dude, and you know what else, Tom? Like, and some people have told me I'm like, some people that I used to work with back when I was working with like larger teams. They used to tell me I was like too anal about stuff. So Tom, I know you work at we won't dox Tom, but Tom works at a very large telecom company that everyone here, that probably maybe like 80% of you watching right now might be using their internet service in one way, shape, or form. So Tom, I know you know a thing or two about like tickets and stuff like that. For every single like ticket that I had, this is when I was learning SQL. What every single ticket that I had that involved me having to like go in the DB and like alter a stored procedure, alter a sprock, or update something, what I did was I had a text file. I actually had one giant SQL file. It was a .SQL file, okay? And what I would do is every time I was doing something, I would put a comment in the SQL file and I would say, here's the ticket number, here's a link to the ticket, here's what I needed to do. And when I was typing the scripts and doing all that stuff, I would put the scripts in actual SQL. I wouldn't comment it out. And I would write like an explanation of how to use it. And then at the end of the year, that first year, I didn't really have to work or think ever again. Anytime, 95% of the time, there was a problem with a stored procedure or a SQL problem, because most of them ended up being like generally the same. And all I had to do was like, oh yeah, I remember that. Go back to the SQL file, copy and paste my SQL script that I had to write, put it in there, or like think for a second or two to change or adjust it in a different way that it was specific towards the problem that I had. And dude, whoever inherited that SQL file, lucky, dude, because some of those sprocs were like thousands of lines long, written by Russian people who joined in the where clause. But I don't even know why they did that. But yeah, doing stuff like this, guys, taking notes and putting it in a file and even organizing them by like month and year. This like you're literally putting your thoughts on paper, or in this case, digitally in a file. And that way, like sometimes when you try to recall things by memory, it can be hard when you have so many things in your head, right? And if you just know a word that maybe you might need to look for, and maybe you think that you potentially touched it in the past, you can open up your files and you can Control F and search for a word. You find the word, you're like, that's right, I did this already. I already know how to do this. New Horizons, Stack Overflow is a bunch of elitists. Yeah, they are, aren't they? 90% of my questions get closed for some BS. You have to be so with Stack Overflow, you have to be very particular about how you ask it. You have to put code, and you have to be concise and to the point, because you have to realize you guys are dealing with like people who are like, actually, so you have to be concise and to the point, and you don't want to add too much information. You don't want to leave out too much information. You have to have like posting stuff on Stack Overflow. That's a skill that you have to learn in and of its own. But if you can do it right, people leave you alone. And once you get your rep points up enough, people are like, they're like, oh, he's got like 37 million rep points. Oh, we'll be nice to him. Chad Donner Schwantz says, bro, I used to be a management consultant. 80% of my job was Google too. Dude, 80% of like everyone's job is Google now. Josh, get your Brazilian power crystals out. When an outage comes up, adopt a positive and happy, how can I help? This goes a long way on stressful calls with executives asking, is this fixed yet? A problem is your opportunity. Yeah, problems are always opportunities, guys. New Horizons says, one good thing about modern women influenced offices is at least you can make a comfortable cubicle to work in. This is for true. Add tags to the files for grep so you can find it easily. Yep. Christian Soda says, I need to work on that. I had a bad habit of putting blah, 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 blah on file names. Yeah, don't do that. You got to name things good easily so you can just search for them. And Christian, you just got a Mac now too. So all you have to do is if you look in your on your desktop or literally wherever it is you are the computer at that time, in the top right hand corner, there's going to be a search bar, or there's going to be, you see that magnifying glass there? You can just literally click in that and type whatever word you want, and it'll look through your entire computer for you, which is very handy and nifty. Another advice, and this is specifically for the information overload people, take a break, guys. Go eat food, go exercise, go for a walk, but do not move. Like if you get stuck on a problem, an error message, do not move until you made that progress. Don't just skip over it and go on to something else, okay? When you're implementing code and when you're learning different things, when you're learning stuff, I told you guys, you should allow yourself to have the ability to like, okay, let me come back to that later. If you're actually implementing code, there's a process doing it, and you want to do it the right way. So don't just skip over a problem, because what's going to happen, like I talked about earlier, you're going to end up like doing all this extra stuff or moving on to something else that might be dependent on the code that you were writing before. And then you're going to have to go back and spend twice as much time redoing it or fixing it. So instead, if you can't figure it out, take a break. Go eat food, go exercise, literally go do anything, and then come back when you're in a better mindset. Come back when you're in a happier mood. And a final thing too, I would say is obviously got to shield DD. We've given, not given, but we've helped so many people get jobs now. I literally have lost count. So that is a huge benefit. Consider joining something like that, or any kind of other group. I don't really know any kind of other network out there that's like us, because we're not just like an academy. We're also a network where people can get help. Kind of similar to like, a college campus where you have like peers that you can get help from, except we're not going to make you guys take retarded courses that are irrelevant to what you're actually doing. And we're also not going to make you draw or circle on a diagram your level of privilege because you are X, Y, or Z type of skin color or whatever, right? We're just here to actually do the work. But take that in consideration, guys, because there's more to that. There's more to DD than just the learning part. I think honestly, I think the network alone is the biggest thing, and I'm sure plenty of people in this chat can allude to that. But even if let's just say you can't afford to join us, and you can't even afford to go join an online forum or something like that, find people that find someone who's older, more experienced than you. They don't have to necessarily be older than you, right? Like you could literally just go find someone. If you have a little brother and your little brother is a programmer, like go and talk to him. Go and allow him to rub off some of his knowledge onto you, and you won't be alone anymore. At that point, you won't be alone, and you'll have someone to at least talk to about the problems that you have, and then you'll hopefully no longer feel like, oh, I'm the only person in the world who's ever experienced something like that. Because believe it or not, most people, when they learn to code, not just code anything, they're like, hey, I'm not a master at it at day one. Oh my God, maybe I might not be cut out for this, right? Skipping the fight, guys, and moving on into a new problem is what most people do. once they hit that blockage. Okay. And if this becomes your standard, if you just like, I'm just going to skip over it for solving problems. And again, this literally doesn't have to do with just code, with anything in life. You're literally skipping out on you being and staying on the path to becoming a competent person. And you're just going to be a feather in the wind. Okay. You're just going to be a feather in the wind. And every opportunity that you guys get, anytime you run into a problem, it's going to be like, whoop. Like I told you guys before, in 2022, there's like anybody can code. There's things like freaking GitHub Copilot. Okay. It's the reason why everyone isn't like a remote working software engineer making $250,000 a year from their home isn't because they can't do it. Okay. Yes, guys. Okay. Listen, some people actually aren't smart enough to code, but in 2022, that threshold is extremely lowered because coding now is easier than it's ever been. And the people who try something like that and it doesn't work out, or they quit, most likely 95% of the time, they'll do the same thing, not just with code, but with anything else, because they're lacking that competency, and they're doing nothing to allow themselves to become more competent and confident, and they just won't be able to move forward with anything. I'm sure you guys can think about some times when you were younger, maybe, that you failed in life, and then when you look back later, you're like, man, I could have easily done that. Why did I think like that? Why did I give up? Everyone else that isn't like you, if you're one of those people that isn't like you and isn't like that, they're going to outwork you. And it's because you've never struggled and suffered, right? You never struggled and suffered and had to figure out a problem on your own. You just became a skipper. A skipperman, guys. Don't be a skipperman, okay? Don't be a skipperman. And it's not a big deal, guys, when you're creating problems for yourself while learning to code. But when millions of dollars worth of information is on the line and you're a liability at this point, that's when you realize what you've been doing is wrong the whole time. And that's not what you want to happen. You want the inverse of that, right? You want to be competent. You want to be confident when that's going on. And you don't want to have to be putting yourself in a situation where, like I developed this protocol and all these people's money is gone now. Oops, sorry. I mean, we've seen some in the last year, we've seen some real life examples of that, right? Especially in the Web3 space, right? So take that for what it's worth, guys. You know, the best you can do is to just change your mindset, to not give up. You can do things like join Developer Direction, and even if you can't, or you can't afford it, or you don't want to, you can do things like finding people who literally do what you want to do or what you're trying to learn how to do, and you can literally go and offer to buy them a freaking beer and talk to them, try to add some kind of value to their life, and then pick their brain. See what they can do to help you out, to help you understand more.